Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Eachine CineFun. This is a surprising little quad, something I really didn't expect. Possibly 4K footage in a 1S platform? Let's take a look. The all-in-one flight controller, the little board down here, is the Crazy Bee X, the version 2.2, which has a 5 amp ESC and it is compatible for 1 and 2S. It also does have a built-in VTX, as well as the potential for your receiver. But in my case, I'm using Crossfire. Motors are 1102, 19,000 kV. Props are HQ 40mm quad-bladed props. The top board and the camera is the Caddx Loris, which does 4K at 30 frames per second, but in this video, you're going to see 2.7K at 60 frames per second. There is also an option to get the RunCam Split 3 Lite in this, but I don't have that. Website says it comes in at 38 grams, but I have that external Crossfire receiver, so mine comes in a little over 41 grams. It also comes with 4 1S 650 milliamp batteries with XT30s already on them, and with the battery it weighs almost 57 grams. The inside flight, I used this G&B 520 milliamp, and that makes the weight a little over 55.25 grams. It does come with a control board that you need to connect to your camera, and you can change settings, whether it's recording or image settings. It does come with an extra set of props. I broke a blade clean off. You get several of these little foam pads. I've used a few of them inside here to secure the battery. You get a screwdriver, prop remover, which really doesn't work, it's so thin. 4 extra screws, too long, too short. The center fielder on my team in college used to call me too short. It comes with a USB charger and 1 charging adapter. You connect them like this. This little switch is for high voltage and low voltage, but it's not marked which one's which. Get out of there, you dirty bird. We're going to start off with the inside flight, kind of my forte. This is what I like to do best. I think the name doesn't really fit. You know, it says CineFun, and I think of sin as in slow, but this one was surprisingly agile. I'm going to have a crash too. Had lots of crashes. I found with the 650 milliamp battery, which I'm not flying in this flight, I could not complete a run without at least half a dozen crashes. So if you're wanting to fly inside, I would encourage you to use a smaller battery. I'd also encourage you to slow down, maybe. I didn't bother trying to slow down. I just kept going, kept crashing, kept having a good time. But that wasn't close. I missed that mark by, 3 feet? And in whoop terms, that's huge. But I think that's the only crash I have in this, if I remember correctly. And it's going to be tough to diagnose whether the footage is for you or not, so just sit back, take it all in. The flight time on the 520 milliamp in my house, flying the way I do fly, comes in at 2 minutes and 24 seconds. So that's your flight time. Also, I have the camera set up on the table, so what you're listening to is the same thing I heard while I was flying. That does not come from the quad. When we go outside, I will turn on the audio because the Caddx Loris does have a microphone on it and it does capture audio. I'll warn you, it's not good. It's not something you're going to want to use, I wouldn't think, unless you are an audio magician and you can make changes to the audio to make it sound good. That'd be awesome. But it just seems like a whole lot of work, if that's even possible, because it really sounds like a drill bit. Most people hate it. When we get to that part, I'll warn you. I'll give you a countdown, or I'll put an icon on screen. Maybe I'll do both. Whatever the case it may be, I don't want to make anybody's eardrums ring or ruin your day. But as far as the flight goes, with an aggressive flight on a relatively heavy battery on a quad that's weighing 55 grams all up, pretty surprising. I was really happy with how it handled. Something else that you need to know is this is running Betaflight 357. That will thrill some people and not others. But that also goes to show you that it's kind of something I've been hitting recently is Betaflight doesn't determine how well you fly. You determine how well you fly. If you've got a quad that flies well, or you've seen a reviewer who flew the quad you bought well, leave it alone. Fly, have fun, enjoy it. Go for many, 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 many fun flights. That's the end of our flight as I bonk here on the table. Yeah, just had the one crash. That's awesome. Let's go to our outside flight. Here we are sitting on the table. This is going to be the slow cruisy flight. I don't think I'm going to show the whole thing to you because I also have a little bit more of an aggressive flight I want to show you as well. I think that's something that, especially if I've recently learned that people that come from camera drones like Phantoms, they really seem to want at least some subsection of those people when they start to come into FPV, they still want the HD footage. Again, this is 2.7K at 60 frames per second. But this is where you want to stare at the footage. It's not going to be the smoothest. It's actually gotten better over the last couple years. Remember the Mobula 7, we were fairly impressed with that.
what was that, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, with how stable its footage was. I do have a little bit of a breeze, and you will see if you study the lines, and maybe it's easier for you to see, but I kind of have to focus on straight vertical lines that will see some waving back and forth. That's just kind of the nature of this tiny size of a platform. But overall, the footage, I think, looks pretty dang good. Of course, I got lucky. I got a relatively warm day. I think it was in the low 40s, and my wind is somewhere below 10 miles an hour. This is the sort of quad that I think once it gets over 10 miles an hour, you're probably not going to want to fly it outside regardless of your skill level. This cruisy flight, I've already kind of scrolled through it, runs 3 minutes long. So this is on the 650 milliamp battery that it comes with. Obviously, flying outside, we're a little bit higher on the throttle because we're not so confined by space. So you can actually fly a little bit faster. You can, even though this is cruising, this is probably faster, quite a bit faster than I was actually flying inside. It's just that inside everything is so compact, it makes it look super fast. But we're covering more ground outside here. That's about half of the flight. Hopefully you don't need to see the whole thing, but this is the Cine part of the CineFun, I guess. Okay, let's move into a little bit more of an aggressive flight that we can look at here outside. This is the same day as the slower flight that I just did. This is a 600 milliamp battery, so this is not the 650. I didn't have enough charge. Of course, it comes with 4, and I've got several of my own batteries that I converted to XT30 some time ago for the baby tooth. So this is going to be more aggressive, going to just kind of fly at a different style. This flight will only come in at about 2 minutes. I think I have a near crash near the end of this. I had several crashes. Of course, I showed you the broken prop. That doesn't happen on its own. But here, this dive. Ooh, did you see how it pulled there to the right a little bit? This one will yaw wash out. If you dive from very high and you get that velocity up, it will do the pitch up and roll, or it'll pitch up and then yaw to usually the right in my experience, but it could yaw either way. That's not desirable, but it's something that we see in a lot of these whoop type quads, is that they don't fly perfectly outside in all maneuvers. Something to keep in mind, that if you're wanting to go out and do dives, it might be a bit of a challenge with this one, as it is with many. I didn't find it did it all the time. Of course, I already showed you that one dive and the pull was kind of slight. I think I have footage of it actually doing it much more violently. I'll include that when we go back to the desk and show you kind of a picture-in-picture. This frame has been well tried and true. I've been using this frame on much heavier builds. Many people have been using this frame. Whenever someone talks about having a Mobula 7 and they're having problems breaking frames, I always tell them to go to this version 3 or trash can version, whatever you want to call it, for this frame. It's very, very durable. This is the first time I've seen it in gray, which is kind of sexy cool, isn't it? Also, you should make sure you, in 4K, oops, hit that bush. If you're recording in 4K, that you need to have a high-speed card. Otherwise, you're going to notice jitters in the goggles and in your footage. So a nice high-speed card to get your HD recording is necessary. Otherwise, it won't work out so well. Let's look at some goggle footage. So this is what you see in the goggles, or a close representation of it, as close as I can show you. This is the DVR footage. You can see there the runtime in the top right, that white lettering. That is telling us that it's recording, and as long as those numbers are moving, it's recording. When you press the button, which you don't have to do, you can just plug in and unplug the battery, and the recording starts automatically the way they have them set up now, and it will save the recording when you unplug. So nothing to worry about there. But if you hit the button and you still got the quad on, you can look at the screen and you'll see that number ticks a few times after you press the button, and then it stops, and then the timer goes away. So that's kind of your indication there. Of course, you can see the OSD elements and how I have it set up. These single camera, dual purpose cameras, they never have a really good FPV view, but this is about as good as we can get until something new comes out. I do think the Runcam Split 3 Lite has a better FPV view, but I don't think its footage is quite as good. I've got videos. You can look at the Mobula 6 HD video on the channel if you want to look at the Runcam Split 3 Lite and its footage, but it does not do 4K. It does not do 2.7K. It only does 1080p. I am not familiar with this battery manufacturer, so if you are, they seem to last fine. It's interesting that we now have a manufacturer that's putting XT30s right on single-cell batteries. something I'm interested in because, quite frankly, it's a pain in the butt to transition them, and I'm not really interested. Although I do think this lead is a little long. As you look at mine here, my leads are much shorter because they used to have PH2s on them, and I just snipped them off and put XT30s on. But it's nice that you get 4. But the charger is a little bit of a shortcoming, isn't it? You can only charge one at a time, and at 650 milliamp, I think it's going to take a couple of hours to get 4 batteries charged. So investing in a charger, it's a good idea, but it gets you started, but I don't know. Plug these into a cell phone charger rather than a computer. You never know what's on them. I don't trust them into my computer, so I don't suggest that you do either. If you get the Crossfire version, be very careful with these antennas. I had 2 different occasions where the black wire here got up into the prop line and spun around in there, and it actually got spun up like a spool of thread. What I would do with the Crossfire version is I would probably take this and glue the antennas. It's going to be a little bit fiddly, but I would glue the antennas around this, or at the very least, I would glue most of it. Like I said, it's going to be fiddly. I would glue it to the back using some welder or your favorite adhesive. Sorry, I had that mainly out of shot there, but that's where I would put it. That'll give you the best, well, not the best range, but good range, and it'll keep it out of your motors and props. Speaking of motors and props, you can see some stress marks, a lot of them on this one. This one's turned up a little bit. I believe maybe that's the fresh one, the one that I broke and replaced. So all my props have been kind of banged up, but the frame's in great shape. I don't think I've broken one of these frames yet, so I think this will be a very, very reliable. Of course, I crashed it a whole bunch in the house. We still have an intact camera, and we still have a canopy. You can see it's got some wear around the edges. You can see we've got some wires here. Now, this is something that you want to be careful with. If these things get loose, you want to check these things. You want to make sure that they're all tucked away neatly and not going to be getting in your prop line. If you change props to, say, the gem fan props have a tail on them that turn up. I happen to have it here. So these actually turn up higher. See how the blade's just designed different? So these will actually come closer in contact. So if you come out with these blades and you snip that should not be a surprise to you if you saw this video, because it probably will. Now, these props will go down further than these HQ props, because as you can see, the HQ props aren't drilled out. I recently had a little bit of a chat with Zong from HQ about making sure the micro props had a prop hole all the way through them. We talked about some other things as well. Hopefully we'll see some changes from HQ props coming up soon to fit these little micros in the 31 millimeter and the 40 millimeter prop size. So this is not ideal to have your props up so high. Normally you would want to have them low, because when you have your props up high and then you have a big crash, if your prop is real stiff or it's just at that right point, you could end up bending a motor shaft or, popping a screw through your mount or something like that. So I always suggest push your props down as far as you can. In this case, it's a little bit of a pain because you'd have to drill them out, and then you've also got to have the right drill bit size. Yeah, that's kind of the one big downside to this quad right here is the props and them being so high. But it's not a huge props downside. We could go to a gem fan prop. Let me just try, well, if I could grab a hold of it. Let me take this off, which is tough. Let's cover that. So a lot of people ask me, how do you remove these props? They're on so dang tight. And then they ship with these, where did it go? These things. And they just bend up. Let's see if I can get one to come off here. So I'm supporting this side of the motor because that's where the force is going to be coming from. See, it just bends the metal. I've got one good one that's way thicker than this that I've kept. The rest of this is like 10 metal. It's terrible. So what I do is I grab it with my fingers, usually try to get 3 through here, and then I get my other hand into the prop. So I'm going to squeeze with both fingers. I'm holding onto the bell, if you can't tell. I want to support the bell, and I'm going to grab the prop, and I'm going to twist and pull all at the same time. We'll see if we can't get this sucker off. There we go. So that's how I get props off. Let's put this gem fan prop on. This is a prop I prefer, but this will be a good test to see if it gets in those cable lines. See how it goes down so much further there? See the difference between the near motor and the far one? Hopefully that's apparent. Let's hold it this way. See how much of the prop shaft? This is much better, much more robust. And because we can get it down there, we still have clearance. So you could switch out props, and I would suggest doing that. I'd go for these quad-bladed props. I like how they grip and turn. But those don't come with the kit. Don't forget that. So buy some extra props. I'll put some links down below to where you can pick up these props in case you want to try what I'm suggesting. Although it could throw the tune off. No disclaimer, I flew it with these props. What you saw was with these props. If you get the non-crossfire version, I think you'll, like I said in the quick roll, you'll drop a couple of grams, so you'll have a little bit more agility, a tiny bit more flight time, and you'll have another antenna wire that will come out here somewhere. It could be that that's what this is made for. It's like an antenna rest. You can see my screwdriver lays down in that little tube kind of nicely. I'm not certain of that, but this seems to be a new canopy design. Also, the camera here, while it's got a hex screw in there, it's also got a washer. I actually misplaced one of those, and I had to go find one. Oh, excuse me. This is the stock. I forgot. This is the stock screw that came with, and when I was adjusting the camera, it came out, and I put a hex screw in there. So one other difference. Something else that's kind of a problem, I guess, that I should have covered is this does not turtle mode on slick surfaces. I tried, because of all my crashes, I tried to turtle mode this on our hardwood floors or on our laminate floor in the basement a lot, or the cement part of the unfinished basement. I tried to turtle mode a lot. Slick surfaces, it will not turtle mode. All it does is spin around and rock around on the ground. But if you get it onto a rug or a carpet or something else to where there's a little bit of grip, it will turtle mode. So keep that in mind. I've gotten very spoiled flying inside with turtle mode and it just working all the time. This is one of the first cases in quite a while where I've seen it where it doesn't work on the slick surfaces, but it does work on carpet. So depending upon your expectations of turtle mode and the quad and your floors or your indoor flying space, something to think about.
And the last thing is price. So I had a good time with this, but if it's too expensive, it doesn't matter. And it is kind of expensive, at least in my opinion. The Crossfire version that I have here with the Caddx Loris, the 4K Caddx Loris, $236.99. You can get the Split 3 Lite, the Runcam Split 3 Lite, which does 1080p at 60 frames per second, at $9 less. So there's not much of a price point. If you drop down to, say, one of the integrated receivers, so it won't have long range, and you need to be able to do D8 mode on your radio, make sure your radio has D8 mode, otherwise it won't work with those. You get it for $218.99 for the 4K version, and you save $9 on the Runcam Split 3 Lite version. So kind of expensive, but where does it rank to you? Does this fit in your quad toolbox somewhere, or is it just too dang expensive and not enough fun? Let me know what you think down in that comment section below. And if you have any other comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.